I should have known something was wrong when my wife Sasha smiled at my best friend Eli during our wedding reception, like she was undressing him with her eyes. But hey, I was drunk on champagne and the delusion that someone actually wanted to spend their life with me. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. Ryan Mitchell, 37, advertising account manager, chronic overthinker, and apparently the world's biggest fool. That's me in a nutshell. 3 years of marriage to the most beautiful woman who ever gave me the time of day, and I spent every single day wondering when she'd wake up and realize she could do better. Turns out she already had. "Ryan, honey, could you grab me another drink?" Sasha called from across our living room, where she was hosting another one of her impromptu dinner parties. She was wearing that black dress that hugged every curve, the one I bought her for our anniversary, the one she never wore when it was just us. I watched her lean into Eli as he whispered something in her ear. Her laugh was musical, genuine, the kind of laugh she used to give me before we got married, when I was still a conquest instead of a convenience. "Sure thing, sweetheart," I replied, my voice dripping with the sarcasm that had become my default setting. "Anything for my devoted wife." Nina, Sasha's best friend since college, caught my eye from the kitchen doorway. She raised an eyebrow at my tone, but said nothing. Nina had always been different from Sasha's other friends. Where they were all blonde highlights and designer handbags, Nina was dark hair and sharp wit. She actually read books, instead of just posting pictures of them on Instagram. "You okay, Ryan?" she asked quietly as I mixed another martini for my wife. "Just peachy," I muttered. "Living the dream." Nina studied my face for a moment. "You know, if you ever need to talk to someone who isn't completely full of shit, I'm around." Before I could respond, Sasha's voice cut through the conversation. "Ryan, where's my drink? And can you turn up the music? This party is dying." I delivered the martini with a flourish. "You're poison, my lady." Sasha barely acknowledged me, already turning back to Eli. "So tell me more about this new startup idea. It sounds so exciting." Eli, my best friend since college, the guy who stood as my best man, who helped me pick out Sasha's engagement ring, who knew every embarrassing story about my teenage years. He was leaning so close to my wife, I could have slipped a business card between them. "Well, it's all about disrupting the traditional market," he said, his hand resting on the back of Sasha's chair. "Sometimes you have to take what you want, you know? Can't wait for it to be handed to you." The way he looked at her when he said it made my stomach turn. "How fascinating," Sasha purred. "I love a man who goes after what he wants." I cleared my throat loudly. "Anyone need anything from the kitchen? More drinks? A fire hose to cool things down?" Sasha shot me an annoyed look. "Ryan, don't be weird." Weird. That's what I'd become in my own house. The weird husband who made inappropriate jokes and killed the mood. The third wheel at my own dinner party. Later that night, after everyone had gone home and Sasha had disappeared into the bathroom for her elaborate skincare routine, I found myself staring at her phone. She'd left it on the kitchen counter, face down, the way guilty people always did. I'm not proud of what I did next, but desperation makes liars and sneak thieves of us all. Her passcode was our wedding date. Of course it was. Even her deceptions had a sense of irony. The text messages told the whole story. Eli. "Can't stop thinking about tonight. The way you looked in that dress." Sasha. "Ryan's so clueless. Sometimes I feel bad for him." Eli. "Don't. You deserve better. You always have." Sasha. "Soon, baby. Just need to figure out the timing." Eli. "I love you." Sasha. "Love you too. Always have." My hands were shaking as I scrolled through weeks of messages. Months. They went back to before our wedding, before our engagement. Hell, they probably went back to before I even introduced them. I'd been played. Completely, thoroughly, expertly played. The bathroom door opened and I quickly put the phone back where I'd found it. Sasha emerged in her silk nightgown, looking like something out of a magazine. "You coming to bed?" she asked, but her tone suggested she hoped I'd say no. "In a minute," I said. "Just cleaning up." She shrugged and disappeared into our bedroom. Our bedroom. The joke was on me. It had never been ours at all. I stood in my kitchen, surrounded by the remnants of a dinner party where my wife had flirted with my best friend in front of a room full of people, and felt something cold and hard settle in my chest. It wasn't heartbreak. Heartbreak was for people who hadn't seen this coming from a mile away. This was something else entirely. This was the moment when the nice guy realizes that finishing last isn't just a cliché. It's a choice, and I was done choosing it. The next morning, Sasha was already gone when I woke up. A note on the kitchen counter said she had an early meeting, with Eli, no doubt. I was drinking my coffee and contemplating the various ways my life had gone off the rails when someone knocked on my door. Through the peephole, I could see Nina standing on my porch, looking uncharacteristically serious. "Hey," she said when I opened the door. "We need to talk. If this is about last night, it's about a lot more than last night." She pushed past me into the house. "Ryan, how long have you known?" "Known what?" She gave me a look that could have melted steel. "Don't play dumb. It doesn't suit you." I closed the door and leaned against it. "Since last night? You?" "Since the beginning." Nina sat down on my couch like she owned the place. "I tried to warn you, before the wedding. Remember when I asked if you were sure about everything?" "I did remember. I thought she was just being a protective friend." "Why didn't you just tell me?" "Because you wouldn't have believed me. You were so gone over her." Nina shook her head. "Besides, I thought maybe she'd actually go through with it. Maybe she'd learn to love you for real. But she didn't." "No, she didn't." Nina met my eyes. "Ryan, there's more. Things you don't know." My coffee suddenly tasted like ash. "How much worse can it get?" "She married you for access to Eli. He was dating someone else when you two got together. Someone serious. Sasha knew the only way to get close to him was through you." The room started spinning a little. "That's impossible. Eli introduced us." At her suggestion. She'd been watching him, Ryan, studying him. She found out you two were friends and orchestrated the whole thing. I sat down heavily in my chair. "You're telling me my entire marriage was a setup?" "I'm telling you that you were a means to an end." Nina's voice was gentle but firm. "And now that she has what she wanted, she's planning to discard you." "How do you know all this?" Nina was quiet for a long moment. Because she told me. She's been bragging about it for months, about how clever she was, how easy it was to manipulate you." She paused. "She called you pathetic, Ryan. Said you were so desperate for love you'd believe anything." Something inside me snapped. Not broke, snapped. Like a rubber band stretched too far. "Well," I said, my voice surprisingly steady, "I guess it's time to show her just how pathetic I can be." Nina smiled for the first time since she'd arrived. It wasn't a nice smile. "Ryan," she said, "I was hoping you'd say that." "Before we go any further," I said, refilling my coffee cup with hands that were surprisingly steady, "I need to know why you're helping me." Nina leaned back on my couch, studying me with those dark eyes that had always seemed to see too much. "You really want to know?" "I really want to know. Because Sasha destroyed my life first." That wasn't what I'd been expecting. "What?" 2 years ago, I was dating someone I loved. Sasha decided she wanted him too, so she seduced him at my birthday party. When I confronted her about it, she told everyone I was jealous and delusional. Nina's voice was calm, but I could see the anger burning underneath. She cost me my relationship, my friend group, and nearly my job when she spread rumors about my mental health. Jesus, Nina, I had no idea. She's very good at playing the victim, and I've been waiting for the right moment to return the favor. She looked at me intently. "The question is, how far are you willing to go?" I thought about those text messages, about the way Sasha had looked at Eli last night, about 3 years of feeling like I was never quite good enough for my own wife. "How far do you think I should go?" Nina's smile was sharp as a blade. "I think we should destroy them both, completely, publicly, and I think we should enjoy every minute of it." "I'm listening." "First, we need more evidence. What you saw last night was just the tip of the iceberg." Nina pulled out her phone. "I've been documenting everything for months. Photos, screenshots, recordings. Sasha thinks I'm her loyal little friend, so she tells me everything." She showed me her phone. There were dozens of photos. Sasha and Eli at restaurants, holding hands in parking lots, kissing outside his apartment building. The timestamps went back 8 months. "How did you get all this?" "I hired a private investigator. Cost me $3,000, but it was worth every penny." Nina swiped through more photos. "They've been meeting at the Marriott downtown every Tuesday and Thursday. Room 412. Always the same room." I stared at the evidence of my wife's betrayal, laid out in high-definition color. It should have hurt more. Instead, I felt that cold, hard thing in my chest growing stronger. "What's the plan?" "Phase 1, we make them comfortable. Let them think they're getting away with it. Meanwhile, we gather more evidence and start laying the groundwork for their destruction." "And Phase 2? "Phase 2 is where things get interesting." Nina's eyes gleamed. "We're going to give them exactly what they deserve. Social ruin, professional embarrassment, and a healthy dose of public humiliation." "What about you and me? if we're working together? Oh, we're going to be working very closely together. Nina moved closer to me on the couch. In fact, I think it's time Sasha got a taste of her own medicine. I understood what she was suggesting. Nina, I don't want to use you the way she used me. Who says you'd be using me? She reached over and touched my hand. Ryan, I've had a crush on you since college. The only reason I never said anything was because you were Eli's friend, and then you were with Sasha. This was moving fast. Too fast. But then again, my wife was screwing my best friend, so maybe conventional wisdom didn't apply anymore. Are you sure about this? I'm sure about wanting to watch them burn. Everything else we can figure out as we go. Nina squeezed my hand. But first, we need to set the trap. What kind of trap? We're going to throw a party. This Saturday. Invite everyone, Sasha's work friends, Eli's business partners, the whole neighborhood. We'll make it seem like a celebration. A celebration of what? Nina's smile was wicked. Our new relationship. The plan was elegant in its simplicity. We would announce that Nina and I had fallen in love, that we'd been secretly seeing each other for weeks. It would force Sasha and Eli's hand. They'd either have to come clean about their own affair or watch helplessly as their secret was overshadowed by our very public romance. She'll lose her mind, Nina said with obvious satisfaction. Sasha can't stand not being the center of attention. And the idea that her best friend stole her husband? She'll completely lose her shit. What about Eli? Eli's a coward. He's been stringing Sasha along because he likes the thrill of the affair, but he's terrified of actually committing to anything. The minute things get complicated, he'll run. We spent the next 2 hours planning every detail. The guest list, the menu, the timeline. Nina would move some clothes into my house to make it look like we'd been living together. We'd post some carefully staged photos on social media. By Saturday night, everyone would believe we were madly in love. There's one more thing, Nina said as she was getting ready to leave. We need to practice. Practice what? Instead of answering, she kissed me. It was soft at first, tentative. But when I didn't pull away, it deepened into something real and hungry and desperate. When we broke apart, we were both breathing hard. Practice that, she whispered. After Nina left, I sat in my empty house and tried to process what had just happened. 24 hours ago, I'd been a happily married man living in blissful ignorance. Now I was plotting revenge against my wife and best friend with a woman I was apparently dating. My phone buzzed with a text from Sasha. Working late again tonight, don't wait up. I stared at the message for a long moment, then typed back, no problem. I'll be busy too. It wasn't a lie. I had a lot of work to do. The next few days passed in a blur of preparation. Nina came by every evening after work, and we fell into an easy routine of cooking dinner together and planning our revenge. It felt more domestic and comfortable than anything I'd had with Sasha in years. You know, Nina said on Thursday night as we cleaned dishes, if we weren't doing this for revenge, I think I'd actually like dating you. Just think. She laughed and flicked soap suds at me. Okay, I know I'd like it. Good, I said, surprising myself with how much I meant it. Because I think I'd like it too. We were interrupted by the sound of a car in the driveway. Through the kitchen window, I could see Sasha getting out of her BMW. She was home early for once. Shit, I muttered. She's not supposed to be here. Relax, Nina said calmly. This is actually perfect. Perfect? How is this perfect? Because now we get to see how good an actress she really is. Nina grabbed a dish towel and dried her hands. Just follow my lead. Sasha walked into the kitchen and stopped short when she saw Nina. Oh, she said, her smile faltering slightly. I didn't know you were here. Ryan invited me for dinner, Nina said brightly. We've been having the most interesting conversations lately. I watched Sasha's face carefully. There was something there, not jealousy exactly, but a flicker of annoyance that her best friend was in her territory. How nice, Sasha said. Ryan's not usually much of a cook. He's full of surprises, Nina replied, moving closer to me. Aren't you, honey? The endearment hung in the air like a challenge. Sasha's eyes narrowed slightly. Honey? Inside joke, I said quickly. We should probably get going, Nina said to me. We don't want to be late for the movie. This was news to me, but I played along. Right, the movie. Sasha watched us gather our things with increasing confusion. You two are going to a movie, together. Is that weird? Nina asked innocently. I mean, we're friends. Friends go to movies. Of course, Sasha said, but her voice sounded strained. Have fun. As we walked toward the door, Nina turned back. Oh, Sasha, you might want to change the sheets on the guest bed. Ryan mentioned you've been sleeping there a lot lately. Insomnia is such a bitch, isn't it? Sasha's face went pale. What? But Nina was already pulling me out the door. That was mean, I said once we were in Nina's car. That was just the beginning, Nina replied. By Saturday night, Mean won't even begin to cover it. Friday morning brought the first crack in Sasha's composure. I was drinking coffee and reading the newspaper when she emerged from the guest bedroom looking like she hadn't slept at all. We need to talk, she said, sitting across from me at the kitchen table. About Nina, about last night. Sasha's voice had an edge I'd never heard before. What's going on between you two? I looked up from my paper with the most innocent expression I could manage. What do you mean? Don't play dumb, Ryan. The way she was acting, the way you were acting. Are you sleeping with my best friend? The irony was so thick I could have cut it with a knife. Would it bother you if I was? Of course it would bother me. I'm your wife. Are you? I asked quietly. Because lately it feels more like we're roommates who occasionally share a last name. Sasha's mouth opened and closed like a fish. That's not... We've just been going through a rough patch. A rough patch that involves you working late every Tuesday and Thursday? The same days Eli happens to be out of town for business? The color drained from her face completely. I don't know what you're implying. I'm not implying anything. I'm asking a direct question. I folded the newspaper and looked at her steadily. Are you having an affair with Eli? For a moment, I thought she might actually tell the truth. Her eyes filled with tears, and she looked genuinely stricken. But then the mask slipped back into place. How dare you, she whispered. How dare you accuse me of something like that? So you're not? Of course I'm not. Eli is your best friend. He's like a brother to me. Right, a brother. I stood up and put my coffee cup in the sink. Well, that's a relief. For a minute there, I thought you might be lying to me. I left her sitting at the kitchen table and went to get ready for work. In the shower, I allowed myself a moment of grim satisfaction. She was rattled. Good, it was about time. My phone buzzed with a text from Nina. How did it go? Phase 1 complete, I typed back. She's officially freaking out. Perfect. See you tonight for Phase 2. Phase 2 involved a trip to Eli's office building. Nina had done her homework. She knew his schedule, his habits, his weaknesses. We waited in the parking garage until we saw his Tesla pull into his reserved spot. Remember, Nina said, we're not here to confront him, we're here to plant seeds. Eli emerged from his car looking like the successful tech entrepreneur he was. Expensive suit, perfect hair, the kind of confident swagger that came from never having to face consequences for your actions. When he saw me, his face lit up with what looked like genuine pleasure. Ryan, what are you doing here? Had a meeting in the building, I lied smoothly. Thought I'd say hi. Great. Hey, you want to grab a drink later? I feel like we haven't hung out in forever. Sure, I said. But I should mention, I'm bringing someone. A date? Eli's eyebrows shot up. Dude, what about Sasha? What about her? She's your wife, man, I shrugged. Marriage is complicated. Sometimes you need to explore other options. Eli's face went through several interesting expressions. Confusion, concern, and something that looked suspiciously like panic. Other options? You know how it is. Sometimes the person you're meant to be with has been right in front of you all along. I clapped him on the shoulder. Anyway, I'll see you tonight. Murphy's Bar, 8 o'clock. I walked away before he could respond, leaving him standing in the parking garage looking like someone had just told him his house was on fire. That was beautiful, Nina said when I got back to her car. Did you see his face? He looked like he was going to throw up. Good. Now he's going to spend all day wondering what you know and how much trouble he's in. Murphy's Bar was crowded and loud, exactly the kind of place where private conversations were impossible. Nina and I arrived first and claimed a table in the center of the room, where everyone could see us. You sure you're ready for this? I asked. I've been ready for 2 years, Nina replied. The question is, are you ready to stop being the nice guy? Before I could answer, Eli appeared at our table. He looked nervous and kept glancing around like he expected cameras to jump out of the walls. Hey, he said, sliding into the booth across from us. So this is your date? Eli, you remember Nina, I said. Sasha's best friend. Right. Hi, Nina. Eli's smile was strained. This is unexpected. Life's full of surprises, Nina said sweetly. Isn't it, Ryan? I put my arm around her shoulders and pulled her closer. It really is. You think you know someone, and then you find out they've been keeping secrets. Eli's beer glass stopped halfway to his mouth. Secrets? Oh, the usual married couple stuff. Separate bedrooms, separate lives, separate interests. I took a sip of my drink. But enough about my problems. How's your love life, Eli? Still playing the field? I'm between relationships right now. Really? That's funny. I could have sworn I saw you with someone recently. Dark hair, great smile, looked familiar. Eli's knuckles were white where he gripped his beer. I don't know what you're talking about. My mistake. I shrugged. Anyway, Nina and I have some news. News? Nina leaned forward conspiratorially. We're in love. The words hung in the air like a bomb waiting to explode. Eli's face went through the same progression of expressions I'd seen in the parking garage, but more intense. In love, he repeated slowly. I know it's sudden, I said, but sometimes you just know. You know? Sometimes you meet someone who sees the real you, who doesn't take you for granted or treat you like you're disposable. What about Sasha? What about her? Nina asked. She's been so busy with work lately, I don't think she'd even notice if Ryan disappeared tomorrow. That's not true? Isn't it? I interrupted. When's the last time you saw Sasha and me together? Really together, not just occupying the same space. Eli opened and closed his mouth several times without making a sound. The thing is, Nina continued, Ryan deserves someone who appreciates him, someone who's honest with him, someone who doesn't sneak around behind his back. I should go, Eli said abruptly, standing up so fast he nearly knocked over his chair. Already? We just got here. I just remembered I have a thing, an early meeting tomorrow. He practically ran out of the bar, leaving his beer unfinished and his jacket draped over the back of his chair. Well, Nina said, raising her glass, I think that went well. You think he'll call her? He's probably calling her right now. Nina clinked her glass against mine. By tomorrow morning, they'll both be in full panic mode. She was right. My phone started ringing at 7 a.m. Ryan, we need to talk. Sasha's voice was tight with barely controlled hysteria. Right now. I'm at work. Then come home. This is important. More important than my job? Don't be an ass. Just come home. I found Sasha pacing our living room like a caged animal. She'd obviously been crying, but she'd tried to cover it up with makeup. The result was not flattering. Sit down, she commanded. I prefer to stand. Fine, stand. She took a deep breath. Eli called me last night. Did he? He said you and Nina are together. We are. Since when? Since I realized my wife was more interested in everyone else than she was in me. Sasha's face crumpled. Ryan, please, we can work this out. Can we? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you checked out of this marriage a long time ago. That's not true, isn't it? I pulled out my phone and showed her one of the photos Nina had taken, Sasha and Eli kissing outside the Marriott. Then explain this. The silence that followed was deafening. Sasha stared at the photo like she was seeing a ghost. Where did you get that? Does it matter? Ryan, I can explain. No, I said quietly. You really can't. I walked out of the house, leaving my wife standing in our living room, holding the smoking ruins of her carefully constructed lies. My phone was buzzing with text messages before I even reached my car. Sasha. Please come back. We need to talk about this. Sasha. It's not what you think. Sasha. Ryan, please, I love you. Eli. Dude, call me. We need to straighten this out. Eli. It's not what it looks like. Nina. How did it go? I typed back to Nina. Time for phase 3. Saturday arrived with all the fanfare of an execution. Nina had spent the morning at my house, transforming it from the sterile showplace Sasha preferred into something that actually looked like people lived there. She'd brought flowers, rearranged furniture, and filled the refrigerator with the kind of food that suggested domestic bliss. You know, I said, watching her hang pictures of us together that she'd somehow managed to create using Photoshop and old photos, you're frighteningly good at this. I've had a lot of time to plan, she replied, adjusting a frame. 2 years of watching Sasha get away with everything while playing the victim. I've thought through every possible scenario. And if it backfires? Nina turned to face me, her expression serious. Ryan, do you want your old life back? Do you want to go back to pretending you don't know about the affair? Pretending to be happy in a marriage that was built on lies? I thought about it for exactly 2 seconds. No. Then we move forward. No matter what happens tonight, at least you'll know the truth is out there. The first guests arrived at 6. I'd invited everyone. Sasha's work friends, Eli's business associates, neighbors, college friends, people who'd been at our wedding, people who thought they knew us, people who were about to get the shock of their lives. Sasha showed up fashionably late, wearing a red dress that probably cost more than most people's rent. She looked beautiful and confident, but I could see the tension in the way she held her shoulders, the slight tremor in her hands. "Quite a party," she said, surveying the crowd. "What's the occasion?" "Nina and I have an announcement to make," I replied. "Do you?" Eli appeared at her elbow, looking like a man walking to his own funeral. "Hey, Ryan, nice party." "Thanks for coming, both of you." The three of us stood there in the kind of awkward silence that makes bystanders uncomfortable. Around us, the party continued, people laughing, drinking, having no idea they were about to witness a social demolition. "Where is Nina?" Sasha asked, her voice carefully neutral. "Getting ready for the big moment." I checked my watch. "Should be any minute now." As if summoned by my words, Nina appeared at the top of the stairs. She was wearing a simple black dress that somehow managed to be both elegant and devastating. Every conversation in the room stopped as she descended. "Sorry to keep everyone waiting," she said, her voice carrying easily across the suddenly quiet room. "Ryan and I have something we'd like to share with all of you." I moved to her side and took her hand. "We wanted you all to be the first to know that Nina and I are engaged." The silence that followed was profound. Then the room exploded into surprised congratulations, confused murmurs, and the sound of Sasha's wineglass hitting the hardwood floor. "Engaged?" Sasha's voice was barely a whisper. "I know it's sudden," Nina said, addressing the room but looking directly at Sasha. "But when you know, and we've known for a while now." "How long?" The question came from Jenna, one of Sasha's work friends. "We've been seeing each other for about 3 months," I said. "We tried to keep it quiet while I figured out my marriage situation, but—" I shrugged helplessly, letting the implication hang in the air. Around us, people were doing the math, realizing what this meant about my marriage to Sasha. 3 months? Eli's voice cracked slightly. "It started innocently enough," Nina said, her arm sliding around my waist. "I was helping Ryan through some difficult times in his marriage. One thing led to another, and—" She looked up at me with an expression of such genuine affection that for a moment I almost forgot we were acting. "And I realized I was in love with someone who'd been right in front of me all along," I finished. The crowd was eating it up. There's nothing people love more than a good romance, especially one with a hint of scandal. But I was watching Sasha and Eli, and their faces told a different story entirely. Sasha looked like she was about to be sick. Eli looked like he wanted to disappear into the floor. "This is so romantic," gushed Lacey, another of Sasha's friends. "But what about—" She glanced at Sasha uncertainly. "Sasha and I have been growing apart for a while now," I said gently. "We both knew it wasn't working. In fact, I think Sasha has found her own happiness elsewhere. Haven't you, sweetheart?" All eyes turned to Sasha, who was standing frozen in the middle of my living room like a deer in headlights. That's not... It's okay," I said magnanimously. "We're all adults here. Sometimes marriages don't work out. The important thing is that everyone ends up happy." "Who's Sasha seeing?" someone called out. The question hung in the air like a sword over Damocles. Sasha's eyes darted to Eli, who had gone pale as paper. "I think that's Sasha's news to share," Nina said sweetly. "When she's ready." But the damage was done. People were looking at Sasha expectantly, waiting for her to reveal her own romantic subplot. And when she remained silent, they started speculating among themselves. "I need some air," Sasha said abruptly, pushing through the crowd toward the back door. Eli hesitated for a moment, then followed her outside. Through the kitchen window, I could see them having what looked like an intense conversation on the patio. "Ladies and gentlemen," Nina said, raising her voice to reclaim the room's attention, "there's champagne in the kitchen. Let's celebrate." The party resumed with renewed energy, fueled by gossip and alcohol. People clustered in small groups, dissecting what they'd just witnessed, speculating about the timeline, wondering how long I'd been unhappy in my marriage. "You're enjoying this," I murmured to Nina as we accepted congratulations from a parade of well-wishers. "Aren't you?" I considered the question. Was I enjoying watching my wife's world crumble? Was I taking pleasure in her obvious distress? "Yes," I admitted. "I really am." "Good, because we're just getting started." 20 minutes later, Sasha and Eli came back inside. Sasha's makeup was smudged, and Eli looked like he'd aged 5 years. They moved through the party like ghosts, accepting awkward condolences about my marriage and deflecting questions about their own relationship status. As the evening wore on, I watched my wife try to maintain her composure while her world fell apart around her. People who had once hung on her every word were now whispering behind her back. Friends who had envied her perfect marriage were now looking at her with pity. "Ryan," she cornered me near the kitchen. "We need to talk. Privately." This probably isn't the best time. I don't care. 5 minutes. I followed her upstairs to what used to be our bedroom. She closed the door and leaned against it, her carefully maintained facade finally cracking. You can't do this, she said. Do what? This. The engagement, the public humiliation. You can't just throw away 3 years of marriage for some revenge fantasy. Revenge fantasy? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Sasha, you've been screwing my best friend for months. You married me to get close to him. You used me, lied to me, and made me feel like I was crazy for suspecting something was wrong. And you think this is about revenge? It is about revenge. You're trying to hurt me. No, I said quietly. I'm trying to be happy. For the first time in 3 years, I'm with someone who actually wants to be with me. Nina doesn't love you. She's using you to get back at me. The words hit their target, but not in the way she'd intended. Because even if they were true, even if Nina was using me, at least she was honest about it. At least she wasn't pretending to be something she wasn't. Maybe, I said, but at least she's not pretending to be my loving wife while she fucks my best friend. Sasha flinched like I'd slapped her. Ryan? We're done, Sasha. The marriage, the lies, the pretending, all of it. I opened the bedroom door and found Nina standing in the hallway, clearly having heard every word. Everything okay? She asked. Everything's perfect, I said, taking her hand. We left Sasha standing in the bedroom and went back downstairs to our engagement party. The party that was really a wake for my marriage, a celebration of my wife's downfall, and the beginning of something I didn't fully understand but was ready to embrace. By the time the last guest left, Sasha and Eli had disappeared. I found a note on the kitchen counter. We'll talk tomorrow. Still. Think they'll try to salvage it? Nina asked as we cleaned up. Their relationship or their reputations? Both? I looked around my house, which felt more like home than it had in years. I don't think they can salvage either. Nina smiled and kissed me softly. Good, because tomorrow we finish what we started. Sunday morning brought the first casualties of our social warfare. My phone was buzzing with texts from mutual friends, family members, and acquaintances who'd heard about the party secondhand. Mom. Ryan, honey, call me. I heard some disturbing rumors. College buddy Mike. Dude, is it true about you and Nina? What about Sasha? Neighbor Karen. Such a shame about your marriage. We always thought you two were perfect together. But the most interesting messages came from Sasha's work friends. Jenna. Ryan, I'm so sorry. I had no idea Sasha was, well, if you need someone to talk to. Lacey. We're all Team Nina now. Sasha's been acting weird for months, and now we know why. Looks like the gossip mill is working overtime, Nina said, reading over my shoulder as she made coffee in my kitchen. Our kitchen, I corrected myself. Any word from the happy couple? Radio silence, but I have a feeling that's about to change. She was right. At exactly 10 a.m., Sasha's BMW pulled into the driveway. She sat in the car for a full 5 minutes before getting out, and when she did, she looked like she hadn't slept at all. Ryan, she called through the front door. I know you're in there. We need to talk. I opened the door, but didn't invite her in. What's there to talk about? Everything. This whole situation is insane. You can't just end our marriage because of some misunderstanding. Misunderstanding? Nina appeared beside me, wearing one of my t-shirts and nothing else. Is that what we're calling adultery now? Sasha's face went red. This is between my husband and me. Actually, I said, I think Nina has a right to be part of this conversation. She is my fiancée, after all. Fiancée? Sasha's voice cracked. Ryan, you can't be serious. You've known her for years and never showed any interest. Maybe because I was married to someone else, someone who was supposed to be faithful to me. I made a mistake. You made a choice, Nina interrupted. Multiple choices, over multiple months. You chose to betray Ryan, you chose to lie to him, and you chose to use him to get to Eli. You don't know what you're talking about. Nina pulled out her phone and scrolled through the photos. Room 412 at the Marriott, every Tuesday and Thursday for 8 months. Should I keep going? The fight went out of Sasha like air from a punctured balloon. She sagged against the doorframe, suddenly looking older than her 34 years. How long have you known? She whispered. Long enough, I said. The question is, what happens now? Now? Now you come to your senses and we work this out. We go to counseling. We rebuild trust. Sasha, stop. I held up a hand. It's over. The marriage, the lies, the pretending. I'm filing for divorce. You can't. I won't let you. You don't get a vote anymore. She stood there for another moment, her face cycling through disbelief, anger, and something that might have been genuine grief. Then she straightened her shoulders and became the woman I'd fallen in love with, beautiful, confident, and absolutely ruthless. "Fine," she said, "if that's how you want to play it. But don't think this is over. You have no idea what I'm capable of." She turned and stalked back to her car, leaving Nina and me standing in the doorway. "That sounded like a threat," Nina observed. "It was definitely a threat." "Good. I was hoping she'd make this interesting." The first shot in Sasha's counterattack came Monday morning. I arrived at work to find my boss, Janet, waiting in my office with a concerned expression. "Ryan, we need to talk." "About?" "I received a call this morning from someone claiming to be your wife. She said you've been having some kind of mental health crisis, that you've been making erratic decisions and might be a danger to yourself or others." I sat down heavily in my chair. "She said what?" "She suggested that the company might want to consider putting you on administrative leave while you get the help you need." Janet's tone made it clear what she thought of this suggestion. "Want to tell me what's really going on?" I gave Janet the abbreviated version: the affair, the divorce, the engagement. She listened without interrupting, her expression growing more disgusted by the minute. "So your wife is cheating on you, and her solution is to try to get you fired?" "Apparently." "Well, that's not happening. But Ryan, you need to be careful. If she's willing to call your workplace with false accusations, there's no telling what else she might do." Janet was right to be worried. Over the next few days, Sasha's campaign of retaliation escalated. She called my bank, claiming I was mentally incompetent and shouldn't have access to our joint accounts. She contacted my landlord, we rented the house, telling him I was planning to damage the property. She even called my mother, spinning a sob story about my breakdown and begging her to stage an intervention. But her biggest mistake was underestimating Nina. "She's trying to isolate you," Nina said as we reviewed the latest round of harassment. "Classic abuser tactics. Make everyone think you're unstable so they won't believe you when you tell them what she's done. It's not going to work. No, it's not. Because we have evidence and we have witnesses. But more importantly, we have a plan." Nina's plan was elegant in its simplicity. If Sasha wanted to play dirty, we'd show her what dirty really looked like. First, we leaked the photos. Not to gossip blogs or social media. That would have been too obvious. Instead, Nina sent them anonymously to Sasha's boss, Eli's business partners, and select members of their social circle. Just enough to start the whisper campaign. Then we went after their professional reputations. Sasha worked in PR, where image was everything. A few well-placed rumors about her personal ethics and reliability issues were enough to make her clients nervous. Eli's tech startup was in the middle of seeking investors who suddenly found themselves receiving anonymous packages containing photos of him in compromising positions. "This is psychological warfare," I said, watching Sasha's carefully constructed world crumble from the outside. "This is justice," Nina corrected. "They destroyed your life for their own selfish pleasure. Now they get to face the consequences?" The consequences came swiftly. Sasha lost 2 major clients in 1 week. Eli's investors pulled out of a crucial funding round. Their friends stopped calling, stopped inviting them to parties, stopped pretending not to know about the affair, but the killing blow came from an unexpected source. "Ryan." The voice on the phone was familiar but strained. "It's Eli." I hadn't spoken to my former best friend since the engagement party. "What do you want?" "I want to apologize, and I want to make a deal." "I'm listening." "Meet me at Murphy's bar. 1 hour. Come alone." I looked at Nina, who was listening to my half of the conversation with interest. "I don't think that's a good idea." "Please, Ryan. I know I fucked up. I know I don't deserve it. But I'm asking you, as someone who used to be your friend. Give me 1 hour to explain." Against my better judgment, I agreed. Murphy's bar was nearly empty on a Tuesday afternoon. Eli was already there when I arrived, nursing a whiskey and looking like he'd aged 10 years in the past week. "You look like shit," I said, sliding into the booth across from him. "I feel like shit." He took a long sip of his drink. "Ryan, I'm sorry. I'm so fucking sorry." "For which part? Sleeping with my wife? Or getting caught?" "For all of it. For betraying you, for lying to you, for being the worst friend in the history of friendship." He looked up at me with bloodshot eyes. "I never meant for it to happen." "Bullshit. No, really. It started as just, I don't know, flirting. She was unhappy, I was lonely, and one thing led to another." "You were lonely. You've dated half the women in this city." "Dating isn't the same as connecting with someone. And Sasha, she made me feel like I was the only person in the world. I stared at him in amazement. Do you hear yourself? You're talking about my wife. I know. I know how fucked up it is. But Ryan, you have to understand. She pursued me. She made the first move. She suggested the hotel. She came up with the whole plan to keep it secret. The plan that involved using me as cover. I told her we should tell you, multiple times. I said we should come clean, that you deserved better. Eli leaned forward desperately. She's the one who said we had to wait, that the timing wasn't right. And you believed her. I wanted to believe her. I was in love with her, Ryan. I thought she was going to leave you for me. The pieces clicked into place. But she wasn't. No. When you announced your engagement to Nina, I confronted her. I said it was time to choose, me or you. And she chose... He laughed bitterly. She chose neither of us. What do you mean? She's been seeing someone else, someone new, has been for weeks. Eli pulled out his phone and showed me a photo. Sasha kissing a man I didn't recognize outside a restaurant. Turns out we were both just placeholders. I stared at the photo, feeling a strange mix of vindication and disgust. Who is he? Her new boss. Married, kids, the whole suburban dream. She's already working on breaking up his marriage. Jesus. The thing is, Eli continued, she's been telling him the same story she told me. That she's the victim in all this. That you're the crazy ex-husband who won't let go. That I'm the obsessed friend who won't take no for an answer. I sat back in the booth, processing this information. Sasha wasn't just a cheater. She was a serial manipulator. A woman who collected men like trophies and discarded them when something better came along. Why are you telling me this? Because I want to make a deal. Eli's voice was steady now, determined. I'll give you everything. Photos, texts, recordings, witnesses. Everything you need to destroy her completely. In exchange, you call off the dogs on my business. What makes you think I have any control over that? Come on, Ryan. We both know Nina's behind the investor pullout. She's good. I'll give her that. But I've got 20 employees who don't deserve to lose their jobs because I couldn't keep it in my pants. I considered his offer. On one hand, Eli had betrayed me in the worst possible way. On the other hand, he was offering me the ammunition to finish Sasha once and for all. What kind of evidence are we talking about? Eli pulled out a flash drive. Everything. Text messages going back 2 years, photos, videos, recordings of phone calls. She documented everything, Ryan. She's got this weird need to collect evidence of her conquests. Videos? Not what you're thinking, but close enough. Eli pushed the flash drive across the table. There's also something else. Something she doesn't know I have. What? A recording of her talking to her friend Jenna about you, about how pathetic you are, how easy you were to manipulate, how she never loved you. His voice was quiet. It's pretty brutal, Ryan. I picked up the flash drive, feeling its weight in my palm. Such a small thing to contain the destruction of a person's life. Deal, I said. Eli nodded, looking relieved and exhausted. For what it's worth, I really am sorry. You were the best friend I ever had, and I threw it away for someone who never gave a shit about either of us. Yeah, I said, standing up. You did? I left him sitting in the bar and drove home to Nina, the flash drive burning a hole in my pocket. When I told her about Eli's offer, her eyes lit up with predatory satisfaction. Perfect, she said. Now we can finish this properly. Nina, I said carefully, when this is over, what happens to us? She looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. What do you want to happen? I want us to be real. Not just revenge, not just payback. Real. Nina was quiet for a long moment. Then she smiled. Not the sharp, predatory smile I'd grown accustomed to, but something softer and more genuine. I'd like that too, she said. But first, let's finish what we started. The community center was decorated with balloons and streamers for the annual neighborhood block party. Kids ran around with face paint and cotton candy while adults clustered around picnic tables, gossiping and drinking beer from red plastic cups. It was the perfect setting for a public execution. You sure about this? Nina asked as we walked through the crowd, carrying our contribution to the potluck dinner. I'm sure. I squeezed her hand. It's time everyone knew the truth. We'd spent the past week preparing for this moment. The flash drive Eli had given me contained enough evidence to destroy Sasha's reputation completely, but we needed the right venue, the right audience, the right moment for maximum impact. The neighborhood block party was perfect. Everyone would be there. Friends, neighbors, co-workers, family members, the people whose opinions mattered, whose judgment would follow Sasha for years to come. There she is, Nina murmured, nodding toward the beverage station. Sasha looked radiant in a yellow sundress, her hair perfect, her smile bright as she chatted with a group of neighbors. She was playing the role of the wronged wife beautifully, accepting sympathy and support from people who believed her version of events. "Poor thing," I heard Mrs. Henderson from down the street say, "going through such a difficult divorce, and with her husband flaunting his new relationship right in front of everyone." "I heard he had some kind of breakdown," added Bob from next door. "Started making wild accusations about her having an affair." Sasha nodded sadly. "It's been very difficult. I keep hoping Ryan will get the help he needs." I felt Nina tense beside me. Lying bitch. "Not for much longer." We made our way through the crowd, accepting congratulations on our engagement and deflecting questions about my marriage. People were curious but polite, the way neighbors always are when they sense drama but don't want to seem too eager for details. "Ryan!" Mayor Davidson appeared at my elbow, all smiles and political charm. "Great to see you. I understand congratulations are in order?" "Thank you, sir. Nina and I are very happy." "Wonderful, wonderful. You know, I was hoping I could get you to say a few words later, about community, about new beginnings. We're doing a little ceremony to recognize some of our longtime residents." I glanced at Nina, who nodded almost imperceptibly. "I'd be honored." "Excellent. We'll call you up around 6, just before the fireworks." As the mayor moved on to glad hand other constituents, Nina leaned close to my ear. "Perfect timing. You think she'll try to stop me?" "I think she'll try, but by then it'll be too late." The afternoon passed slowly. We mingled, we ate, we played the part of the happy couple while Sasha held court on the other side of the park, surrounded by sympathetic friends and neighbors. I could see her watching us, her smile never wavering, but her eyes cold as winter. At 5:30, her new boyfriend arrived. Richard Blackwood, her married boss, looking uncomfortable and out of place in his expensive suit. He kissed Sasha's cheek, and she introduced him to the crowd as her dear friend, who's been such a support during this difficult time. "He has no idea what's coming," Nina observed. "Neither does she." At exactly 6 o'clock, Mayor Davidson took the makeshift stage and called for everyone's attention. The crowd gathered around, drinks in hand, children sitting cross-legged on the grass in front. "Ladies and gentlemen, we're here today to celebrate our wonderful community and the people who make it special. I'd like to invite Ryan Mitchell to say a few words about new beginnings and the importance of truth in our relationships with one another." Polite applause rippled through the crowd as I made my way to the microphone. I could see Sasha in the front row, her face carefully neutral, Richard standing protectively beside her. "Thank you, Mayor Davidson, and thank you all for being here today." I looked out over the sea of familiar faces, neighbors, friends, people I'd known for years. The mayor asked me to talk about new beginnings, and I can't think of a more appropriate topic. More applause. Encouraging smiles. They had no idea what was coming. You see, new beginnings often require us to confront difficult truths about our past. Sometimes we discover that the people we trusted most have been lying to us. Sometimes we learn that our entire lives have been built on deception. The crowd was still smiling, but I could see confusion starting to creep into some faces. In the front row, Sasha had gone very still. 3 months ago, I discovered that my wife had been having an affair with my best friend. Not just a casual fling, but a calculated long-term deception that began before our wedding. The smiles disappeared. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Sasha's face had gone pale, but she was trapped in the front row with nowhere to run. "Now, I know what you're thinking. This is a private matter, something that should be handled between spouses. And you're right, except that my wife has been telling people that I'm mentally unstable, that I'm making false accusations, that I'm the villain in this story." I pulled out my phone and connected it to the speaker system the mayor had set up. So I thought it might be helpful to let you hear the truth, in her own words. The recording that played next was crystal clear. Sasha's voice, laughing with her friend Jenna about how easy I was to manipulate, how pathetic I was, how she'd never loved me but married me anyway because it gave her access to Eli. "He actually thinks I'm attracted to him," her recorded voice said with obvious amusement. "It's almost sad how desperate he is for affection. I could probably get him to do anything if I just smiled and pretended to care about his boring job." The crowd was dead silent now. Every eye was fixed on Sasha, who looked like she wanted to disappear into the ground. "But wait," I said cheerfully. "There's more." The next recording was even worse. Sasha describing in graphic detail how she planned to trade up from me to Eli, then eventually to someone with even more money and status. She talked about me like I was a stepping stone, a useful idiot who served her purposes until something better came along. "The best part," her voice continued, "is that he's so insecure, he'll blame himself when I leave. He'll think it's his fault that he wasn't good enough for me. Someone in the crowd gasped. I could see people turning to look at each other, then back at Sasha, who was now crying. Whether from shame or rage, I couldn't tell. Now, I want to be clear, I continued. This isn't about revenge. This is about truth. Because Sasha hasn't just been lying to me. She's been lying to all of you. She's been playing the victim while systematically destroying the lives of everyone around her. I clicked to the next file. Photos of Sasha with not just Eli, but with Richard, her married boss. Photos that clearly showed their relationship was far from professional. Mr. Blackwood, I said, looking directly at Richard, who had gone white as a sheet. I believe your wife thinks you're at a business conference this weekend. Does she know you're here with your employee? Does she know about the hotel receipts? Richard turned and ran. Actually ran, pushing through the crowd like his pants were on fire. A few people laughed, but most were too shocked to react. The thing is, I continued, Sasha has been telling people that I'm unstable, that I'm making false accusations out of jealousy and spite. So I thought you should all see the evidence for yourselves and decide who's really telling the truth. I played one final recording. Sasha talking to someone on the phone about her plan to destroy me, to make sure everyone thought I was crazy so no one would believe my lies about her affair. When the recording ended, the silence was deafening. 300 people staring at one woman who had just been exposed as a manipulative, lying, cheating sociopath. Sasha finally found her voice. This is illegal. You can't record people without their consent. Actually, I said mildly, in this state only one party needs to consent to a recording. And since you were talking to me in most of these, I was that consenting party. You're sick, she screamed, her carefully maintained composure finally cracking completely. You're a sick, pathetic loser who can't accept that his wife doesn't love him. You're right, I said. I am pathetic. I was so desperate for love that I ignored every red flag, every warning sign, every indication that you were using me. I let you make me feel crazy for suspecting the truth. I let you gaslight me into thinking I was the problem. The crowd was riveted now, watching our marriage implode in real time. But you know what, Sasha? I'm not pathetic anymore, because I found someone who actually loves me, someone who sees my worth, someone who doesn't think I'm a stepping stone to something better. Nina appeared beside me on the stage, taking my hand. The contrast was stark, her genuine smile versus Sasha's twisted mask of rage and humiliation. And the best part, I continued, is that I'm not the only one she's lied to. How many of you has she told that she's the victim here? How many of you has she asked for sympathy and support while she was busy destroying my life? I could see people in the crowd looking uncomfortable, remembering conversations where they'd offered Sasha comfort and encouragement. The truth is, Sasha is a predator. She targets vulnerable people, manipulates them, uses them, and then discards them when they're no longer useful. I was just her latest victim, but I won't be her last unless someone stops her. Stop it, Sasha shrieked. Stop talking. You don't know anything. I know everything, I said calmly. I know about the private investigator you hired to dig up dirt on me. I know about the fake stories you've been spreading about my mental health. I know about the 3 other married men you've been sleeping with while pretending to be the faithful wife. That last part was a lie, but the way Sasha's face changed told me I'd hit close to home. You're lying. Am I? Should we call your boss's wife and ask her what she knows about your relationship with Richard? Should we contact the other wives and see what stories you've been telling them? Sasha looked around desperately, but there was nowhere to run. She was surrounded by 300 people who had just heard proof of her lies and manipulations. Her reputation, her career, her carefully constructed image, all of it was in ruins. I hate you, she whispered, but the microphone picked it up and broadcast it to the entire crowd. I know, I said, but you know what? I don't care anymore, because I'm free. Free from your lies, free from your manipulation, free from spending every day wondering what I did wrong to make you treat me like garbage. I turned to address the crowd one final time. I apologize for bringing this drama to what should have been a fun community event, but I wanted you all to know the truth before Sasha had a chance to spin another story about the crazy ex-husband who couldn't handle rejection. The applause started slowly, just a few people clapping, but it built, growing louder and more sustained until the entire crowd was giving me a standing ovation. Not for my speech, but for my courage in standing up to someone who had been manipulating all of them. Sasha stood in the middle of it all, tears streaming down her face, completely alone for perhaps the first time in her adult life. No one was rushing to comfort her. No one was offering support or sympathy. They had all heard the truth, and the truth was ugly. She turned and ran, pushing through the crowd toward the parking lot. I watched her go, feeling something I hadn't felt in years. Complete and utter satisfaction. "Ladies and gentlemen," Mayor Davidson said, taking back the microphone with obvious discomfort, let's move on to the fireworks display." As the crowd dispersed, people came up to shake my hand, to congratulate me on my courage, to apologize for believing Sasha's lies. Nina stayed by my side through it all, squeezing my hand whenever the attention became overwhelming. "How do you feel?" she asked as we finally made our way back to my car. "Free," I said. "For the first time in 3 years, I feel completely free." "And us? What happens to us now that the revenge is complete?" I stopped walking and turned to face her. "Nina, I need you to know something. This started as revenge, but somewhere along the way, it became real for me. You became real for me." She smiled, and this time there was nothing predatory or calculating about it. "It became real for me, too. So what do you say? Want to try being a normal couple? No schemes, no revenge plots, just us?" I thought you'd never ask. As we drove home together, I could see the fireworks starting behind us, lighting up the sky in brilliant colors. But I didn't look back. I was too busy looking forward, toward a future that was finally completely mine. 3 months later, Sasha left town. Her career was over, her reputation destroyed, her network of lies finally collapsed under the weight of the truth. I heard she moved to another state, probably to start over with a new identity and new victims. I didn't care. She was someone else's problem now. Eli sold his company and moved to California. We never spoke again, but I heard through mutual friends that he was in therapy, trying to figure out how he'd become the kind of person who could betray his best friend for a woman who never loved him. Nina and I got married 6 months after the block party, in a small ceremony surrounded by real friends who knew our whole story and loved us anyway. We bought a house together, adopted a dog, and started building the kind of life I'd always wanted, but never thought I deserved. Sometimes people ask me if I regret the way I handled things, if I regret the public humiliation, the scorched earth approach, the complete destruction of my ex-wife's life. The answer is no, not for a single second. Because sometimes, when someone has spent years systematically destroying your self-worth, manipulating your reality, and treating you like you're disposable, the only appropriate response is to show them exactly what disposal looks like. Sasha wanted to discard me when she was done using me. Instead, I discarded her first. And unlike her, I made sure everyone was watching when I did it. Some people might call me a villain for that, but I prefer to think of myself as a man who finally learned his own worth and refused to accept anything less than he deserved. And what I deserved was someone who loved me for who I was, not what I could give her. Someone who saw me as an end, not a means. Someone who would never, ever make me feel like I was lucky just to be tolerated. I found that someone, and I'll be damned if I was going to let anyone take her away from me. As I write this, Nina is in the kitchen making dinner, humming to herself while she cooks. She does that when she's happy, really, genuinely happy. It's one of the many things I've learned about her since we stopped plotting revenge and started building a life together. In a few minutes, I'll close this laptop and join her. We'll eat dinner and talk about our days, maybe watch a movie or read books in comfortable silence. Normal couple things. The kind of things I used to dream about when I was married to someone who thought I was pathetic for wanting them. But before I close this story, I want to say one last thing to anyone who might be reading this and seeing themselves in my situation. You deserve better. You deserve honesty, respect, and genuine love. You deserve someone who chooses you every day, not someone who settles for you while looking for something better. And if someone in your life is making you feel small, crazy, or worthless, if they're gaslighting you, manipulating you, or treating you like you're disposable, you have every right to fight back. You have every right to expose the truth, to protect yourself, and to walk away with your head held high. Sometimes the best revenge isn't moving on and living well. Sometimes it's making sure everyone knows exactly who they're dealing with before they become the next victim. I learned that lesson the hard way, but I learned it, and now, finally, I'm free.